The drums echoed through the village square as I adjusted my silk veil one final time. My heart hammered against my ribs, not from the dance I was about to perform, but from the weight of what this night could mean. If the stories were true, talent scouts from the capital sometimes attended these festivals. One exceptional performance could change everything for my family. Yue-chan, you're trembling, whispered my younger sister, Lang Shu, from behind the makeshift curtain. Just nerves, I replied, though we both knew it was more than that. Father's gambling debts had grown worse each month, and Mother worked her fingers raw to weave to keep food on our table. The music swelled, and I stepped into the torchlit square. Through my veil, I could see the crowd, merchants, farmers, children clutching sweet cakes. But two figures caught my attention immediately. Near the front stood a nobleman in midnight blue robes, his posture elegant and confident. Beside him, a man in rich burgundy silk watched with keen attention. I began to move, letting the ancient melody guide my steps. The dance told the story of the phoenix rising from ashes, a tale of transformation and rebirth. As I spun, my veil caught the firelight, creating shadows that danced with me across the cobblestones. The nobleman smiled warmly, his appreciation genuine and kind. But the other man watched differently, with an intensity that made me acutely aware of being observed. When our eyes met through my veil, something made me want to look away, though I couldn't name why. The music reached its crescendo, and with a flourish, I let my veil fall. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The nobleman's eyes widened with pleasant surprise, while his companion straightened, suddenly more alert. Applause thundered around me, but I found myself looking back at those two men. The nobleman clapped enthusiastically, but the other man simply stared, as if memorizing every detail of my face. "Beautiful performance, miss," called out an elderly woman as the crowd began to disperse. I bowed gracefully, gathering my veil. "Thank you, honored elder." As I prepared to leave, the nobleman approached with his friend. Up close, I could see the warmth in the nobleman's eyes and the calculating interest in the others. "I am young Master Jianming of the House of Zhao. This is my dear friend, Lian Yu. We were both captivated by your dance." Lian Yu stepped forward, his rich robes rustling. "Indeed, I've never seen such grace." His voice was smooth as silk, cultured and confident. "You honor me, young masters," I replied, offering a modest bow. "I am Yue-chan, daughter of the village weaver." "A weaver's daughter with the grace of a palace dancer," young Master Jianming observed with genuine admiration. "Have you considered performing in the capital?" Before I could answer, Lian Yu interjected. "Perhaps we could escort you home. The roads can be dangerous at night for a young woman alone." Something in his tone, too familiar, too presumptuous, made me decline politely. "Thank you, but my sisters are waiting. Good evening, young masters." As I hurried away, I heard Jianming say something to his friend, but Lian Yu's response was too quiet to catch. I glanced back once and found them both still watching me disappear into the crowd. That night, as I helped Mother count the coins I'd earned from the performance, I couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had shifted. The nobleman's kind smile lingered in my memory, but so did the other man's watchful gaze. "You did well tonight, daughter," Mother said softly. "Perhaps there's hope yet." I nodded, but a strange unease settled in my chest. Hope, I was learning, could be a dangerous thing. 3 days after the festival, I was drawing water from the village well when a familiar voice called my name. "Miss Yue-chan." I turned to see young Jianming approaching alone, his robes simpler but still marking his noble status. Several villagers bowed respectfully as he passed. "Young master," I said, quickly setting down my water bucket to bow. "Please, just Jianming," he said with an easy smile. "I was hoping I might find you here. I've been thinking about your performance." Heat rose to my cheeks. "You flatter me, young master. I mean, Jianming. Not flattery, truth." He gestured toward the path leading to the village market. "Might I walk with you? I have a proposition." My mother had always warned me about noblemen and their propositions, but there was something genuinely respectful in Jianming's manner that put me at ease. "My family hosts a gathering each month. Artists, scholars, musicians, people of talent regardless of birth. I think you would find it stimulating, and they would certainly appreciate your artistry." "A nobleman's gathering?" I shook my head. "I wouldn't belong there." "Talent belongs everywhere," Jianming replied firmly. "Besides, my friend Lian Yu will be there. He mentioned being quite impressed by your performance as well." Something flickered in my chest at the mention of his companion, though I couldn't name it. Curiosity, perhaps, or wariness. "Think about it," Jianming said gently. "Art should be shared, not hidden." Over the following weeks, Jianming began visiting the village regularly. He would appear at the market, the well, or the small temple where I often went to pray. Always respectful, always kind, he gradually drew me into conversations about poetry, music, and philosophy. "You have a keen mind," he told me one afternoon as we sat by the village pond. "It's refreshing to discuss ideas with someone who thinks rather than simply agrees." I laughed, perhaps because I don't know I'm supposed to simply agree with a lord. "Perhaps that's exactly why I value your thoughts," he replied, his eyes twinkling. Through their conversations, I learned more about his companion from the festival. Lian Yu is one of the wealthiest merchants in the region, Jianming had mentioned casually. Richer than most nobles, actually. His trading empire spans 3 provinces. This knowledge made Lian Yu's subsequent appearances all the more puzzling. The merchant would arrive with silk scarves, rare perfumes, delicate jewelry, gifts I consistently refused. "I cannot accept such expensive things," I told him firmly when he presented an ornate jade bracelet. "They're nothing to me," Lian Yu insisted, his dark eyes intent. "A woman of your beauty should be adorned accordingly. Beauty fades, character endures." His jaw tightened slightly. "You're unlike other women." "I am exactly like other women. We all have minds and hearts, not just faces." After each refusal, Lian Yu would grow quiet and brooding, but he kept returning, always with gifts, always with that watchful intensity that made me uncomfortable. One evening, as I helped Father tend our small vegetable garden, he mentioned seeing both men in the village. "Strange company you're keeping," Father muttered, pulling weeds with unnecessary violence. "Young Master Jianming has been nothing but respectful," I said carefully. "Nobles and wealthy merchants, both dangerous in their own ways. Nobles can afford to play with commoners because they have nothing to lose. Merchants always calculate the return on their investments." "What do you mean?" Father straightened, his expression serious. "Just be careful, daughter. Men of power rarely do anything without expecting something in return." His words troubled me, but I pushed the worry aside. Jianming had become a true friend, someone I could discuss ideas with, someone who saw my mind as well as my face. As for Lian Yu, I told myself his persistence would fade when he realized his gifts meant nothing to me. I was wrong about so many things. One morning, while we prepared breakfast, Mother leaned close and whispered, "Your father's been asking about money again." Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hands trembled slightly as she kneaded the dough. "How much this time?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Enough that we'll have to sell the silver hairpin grandmother left me. My heart sank. That hairpin was Mother's most treasured possession, a connection to happier times before Father's gambling consumed our stability. Perhaps I could take on more weaving work, I suggested. Mother shook her head. There isn't enough demand in the village, and I won't have you working your fingers raw like I have. That afternoon, Jianming found me by the river, my usual retreat when family troubles weighed too heavily. He took one look at my face and sat beside me on the grassy bank. "What troubles you?" he asked, gently. For a moment, I considered telling him everything about Father's debts, Mother's desperation, the constant fear that we might lose our home, but pride held my tongue. "Family matters," I said finally. "Nothing that can't be resolved." Jianming nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes talking helps lighten the burden. And sometimes it only spreads the burden to others. True friends carry each other's burdens willingly," he said quietly. Before I could respond, footsteps approached. Lian Yu emerged from the tree line, carrying an elaborate silk parasol. "Yue-chan," he called, slightly breathless. "I've been looking everywhere for you." "Lian Yu," Jianming greeted his friend with less warmth than usual. "You seem agitated. I heard in the village that your family might be facing some financial difficulties," Lian Yu said to me, his eyes gleaming with something I couldn't identify. I wanted to offer assistance. My cheeks burned with embarrassment. "Village gossips exaggerate everything. We're managing perfectly well." "Pride can be expensive," Lian Yu observed, "especially when preventing accepting help from friends." "What kind of help?" Jianming asked, his tone suddenly cooler. Lian Yu's smile was all merchant charm. A loan, naturally. No interest, no pressure for repayment. Simply one friend helping another. Every instinct I possessed screamed warnings. "Thank you, but no. We don't accept charity." "It wouldn't be charity," Lian Yu pressed. "Consider it an investment in your talent. Perhaps you could perform at some of my business gatherings in return." "She's not a hired entertainer," Jianming said sharply. The tension between the two friends was suddenly intense. Lian Yu's eyes flashed with something dark, before his merchant smile returned. "Of course not. Forgive me if I spoke clumsily." He turned back to me. "The offer remains open, should circumstances change." After he left, Jianming was quiet for a long time. "You're troubled?" I observed. "Lian Yu has been my friend since childhood, but lately I wonder if I truly know him." "How so?" Jianming hesitated. "He's always been competitive, always needed to win. As boys, it was harmless, but now, I don't know. Perhaps I'm imagining things." That evening, Father returned home later than usual, reeking of wine and wearing an expression I'd learned to dread. Mother and I exchanged worried glances as he slumped into his chair. "Father?" I ventured carefully. He looked up at me with bloodshot eyes. "That merchant friend of yours, Lian Yu, he knows about our situation." My blood turned cold. "What do you mean?" "He approached me at the tavern, said he'd heard we were struggling, offered to help. Please tell me you didn't—" "I turned him down," Father said quickly, "but he was persistent, said the offer would remain open and that sometimes pride comes before a fall." Mother's face went pale. "What exactly did he say?"
Father's hands shook as he reached for his wine cup. He said he understood the weight of supporting a family, said he'd hate to see talented daughters suffer for their father's difficulties. The way he said difficulties told me everything. Lian Yu knew about the gambling. Somehow he'd discovered our family's most shameful secret. Sleep eluded me that night. I lay awake wondering how the merchant had learned so much about our private affairs and why his offer of help felt more like a threat than kindness. I should have trusted those instincts. But by then, it was already too late.
The next few weeks passed with deceptive calm. John Ming continued his visits, and our friendship deepened into something I dared not name but treasured deeply. When he spoke of poetry, his eyes lit up. When he listened to my thoughts on philosophy, he treated my words as if they carried real weight. "You challenge me," he told me one evening as we watched the sunset from the village temple steps. "Most people tell me what they think I want to hear. Perhaps because most people need something from you. And you don't?" I considered this carefully. Everyone needs things, but I prefer earning them to begging for them. Something shifted in his expression, admiration, perhaps, or something deeper. "You would have made an excellent scholar. Women aren't scholars. Some rules deserve to be broken," he said quietly. But even as my heart grew lighter in John Ming's presence, shadows lengthened elsewhere. Father's absences grew longer, and Mother's worried glances more frequent. Twice I'd caught Lian Yu lingering near our house, always with a plausible excuse: business in the village, visiting a client nearby. Then came the morning that changed everything. I was returning from the market when I heard shouting from our house. Racing inside, I found Father pacing frantically while Mother sat weeping into her hands. "What's happened?" I demanded. Father whirled toward me, his face haggard. "The debt collectors came. They want payment by month's end, or they'll take the house." "How much do we owe?" The number he spoke made my knees weak. It was more than our family could earn in 5 years. "How did it become so large?" I whispered. Father couldn't meet my eyes. "The interest. I thought I could win it back. I kept borrowing more to pay what I owed, but the debts just grew." Mother looked up through her tears. "There might be a way." "What way?" I asked, though dread was already pooling in my stomach. "That merchant, Lian Yu, he's been asking your father to meet with him. He says he has a solution." "No." The word came out harder than I intended. "We will not take money from him." "Yue-chan," Father pleaded, "we have no choice. Unless—" He looked at me with desperate hope. "Could you ask your nobleman friend? Surely a lord could spare." "I will not beg from John Ming either," I said firmly. "We'll find another way." But that night, lying in bed, listening to Mother's quiet sobs through the thin walls, I wondered what other way existed. We had no wealthy relatives, no valuable possessions left to sell. Father's gambling had consumed everything: our savings, Mother's jewelry, even the small dowry my parents had managed to set aside for my future. The next morning brought Lian Yu to our door. "I heard about your troubles," he said to Father, though his eyes never left my face. "I'm here to help." "We appreciate your concern," I began, but Father cut me off. "What kind of help?" Father asked desperately. Lian Yu's smile was gentle, understanding. "I run a money-lending business alongside my trading ventures. I could consolidate all your debts into one loan with very reasonable terms." "What terms?" I demanded. "Nothing you couldn't handle," Lian Yu replied smoothly. "A fraction of what you're paying now. And if circumstances become truly difficult—" His eyes met mine.
I'm sure we could work out alternative arrangements. Something in his tone made my skin crawl, but Father was already reaching for the merchant's extended hand. Father, no, I said sharply. We need time to consider. There is no time, he said brokenly. The collector's return tomorrow. And so, despite every warning bell ringing in my head, Father signed Lian Yu's papers. The merchant's smile never wavered, but I caught something victorious in his expression as he rolled up the documents. You've made the right choice, Lian Yu told Father. Then to me, I'm sure this arrangement will benefit everyone involved. After he left, I sat in our small garden, trying to understand why salvation felt so much like a trap.
2 days after Father signed Lian Yu's agreement, young Master Jianming arrived at our door. He looked unusually troubled. He spoke briefly with my parents before asking if he could walk with me. You seem worried, I observed, as we made our way to the riverside path. I am, he admitted. I've heard troubling things about your family's situation. Heat flooded my cheeks. Village gossips again? Not gossips, Lian Yu. Young Master Jianming stopped walking and turned to face me. He told me he's helping with your family's debts. He is, I said stiffly, hating how the words tasted. Yue-chan, young Master Jianming said gently. I know accepting help can be difficult, but I wish you'd come to me instead. You've already done enough by being my friend. I won't burden you with my family's problems. It wouldn't be a burden. His voice carried an intensity that made me look up. You mean, that is, your friendship means a great deal to me? Something in his eyes made my heart skip. Jianming? I know I have no right to speak of this, he continued, stepping closer. Our stations in life are so different, but these past months, getting to know your mind, your spirit. He took my hands in his. I've come to care for you deeply. The confession hung between us like morning mist. My heart soared and plummeted simultaneously. Soared because I'd harbored the same growing feelings. Plummeted because I knew the impossibility of our situation. You honor me, I whispered, more than you know. But, he interrupted. I know what you're thinking. The differences in our birth, our families, but love doesn't recognize such boundaries. Your family would never accept me. His grip on my hands tightened. My family wants me to marry for political advantage. They've already arranged several meetings with daughters of important ministers. Pain lanced through my chest. Then you know this conversation is pointless. No! His voice was fierce. I've been thinking, perhaps there's a way. If I could convince my father of your worthiness, your exceptional qualities. Jianming, you're a dreamer. I pulled my hands free, though it felt like tearing away part of myself. Noblemen don't marry weavers' daughters. Some have. Love matches aren't unheard of, even among the nobility. For a moment, I let myself imagine it, becoming Lady Yue-chan of the Zhou family, leaving behind the constant worry about money and father's gambling. But reality crashed back quickly. Even if your family miraculously agreed, I said quietly, what about mine? They need me to make a good marriage, one that brings security. A love match with someone whose family despises me would leave them with nothing. Young Master Jianming's face fell as he realized the truth in my words. There must be something I can do, some way to help your family without what? Without leaving you indebted to Lian Yu. His expression darkened. I don't trust his motives. What do you mean? Young Master Jianming hesitated, clearly debating how much to reveal. Lian Yu has always been competitive about women. In our youth, if I showed interest in someone, he would inevitably pursue her as well.
I thought he'd outgrown such behavior, but lately, you think he's helping my family to impress me? I think he's helping your family to have power over you, young Master Jianming said bluntly. His words echoed my own unspoken fears, but I forced myself to appear calm. You're imagining things. He's been nothing but proper. Has he? Young Master Jianming's eyes searched my face. No inappropriate comments, no gifts that made you uncomfortable, no suggestions that you could repay his kindness in personal ways? My silence was answer enough. Yue-chan, young Master Jianming said urgently, please let me help. I have money. No. The word came out harder than I intended. I won't trade one debt for another, especially not with you. It wouldn't be a debt between us. It would be a debt to your family, and they would make sure I never forgot it. Young Master Jianming looked as though I'd struck him. We walked back in heavy silence, both lost in thoughts of impossible situations and dangerous alternatives. That evening, Father received another visit from Lian Yu. I listened from the next room as they discussed investment opportunities that could help Father rebuild his fortunes. Each suggestion required more borrowing, more risk, more entanglement in the merchant's web. When I finally drifted off to sleep, my dreams were haunted by images of golden threads tightening around my family, growing stronger with each passing day.
Father's gambling had always been a source of shame, but I'd never imagined how it could be weaponized against us. That realization came 3 weeks after he'd signed Lian Yu's agreement. I was mending clothes in our courtyard when Mother burst through the door, her face white with terror. "He's done it again," she gasped. "Who's done what?" "Your father. He went to that gambling house near the docks, the one Lian Yu told him about." My blood turned to ice. "What gambling house?" "Lian Yu mentioned it last week, said it was more respectable than the village taverns, with better odds." Mother's voice broke. "Your father thought he could win enough to pay off some of the debt early. How much did he lose?" Mother couldn't speak. She simply handed me a slip of paper covered in Father's shaky handwriting. The number written there was staggering, more than triple what we already owed. "This can't be right," I whispered. "The house gave him credit because he mentioned Lian Yu's name," Mother sobbed. "They said any friend of the merchant was good for the money." The papers fluttered from my numb fingers. "Where is Father now?" "Still at the gambling house, begging them to extend the debt. They want payment tomorrow or—" She couldn't finish the sentence. I ran. Through the village, past the market, down the muddy road to the docks, where the rougher establishments clustered. The gambling house was easy to identify by the desperate faces lingering outside. Inside, smoke and desperation hung thick in the air. I found Father at a corner table, surrounded by 3 large men, whose expressions suggested they were not there to discuss weather. "Father!" I called out. He looked up with red-rimmed eyes. "Yue-chan, you shouldn't be here." "Neither should you." I turned to the men surrounding him. "Gentlemen, surely we can discuss this reasonably." The largest man laughed unpleasantly. "Your father owes us money, girl. A lot of money." "How much exactly?" The number he quoted matched Mother's paper. I steadied myself against the table. "We don't have that kind of money," I said honestly. "Then your father has a problem, unless—" His eyes traveled over me in a way that made my skin crawl. "Pretty daughters can work off debts in various ways." "That won't be necessary," a familiar voice said behind me. I spun to find Lian Yu entering the gambling house, his rich robes incongruous in the sordid surroundings. The threatening men immediately stepped back, their aggressive postures melting into respectful bows. "Master Lian Yu,"
We didn't know this was your business. Everything concerning my friends is my business, Lian Yu replied smoothly. He turned to father. Old friend, you look troubled. I've made a terrible mistake, father whispered. Mistakes can be corrected, Lian Yu said gently. Gentlemen, put this debt on my account. We'll settle it privately. The gambling house operators bowed deeper and melted away like morning mist. Suddenly, the three of us were alone at the table. Thank you, father breathed. I don't know how I'll ever repay. We'll discuss terms later, Lian Yu interrupted, his eyes fixed on me. For now, let's get you home. The walk back to our house passed in tense silence. Lian Yu's sedan chair followed slowly behind us, its occupant invisible behind silk curtains. When we reached our door, he finally emerged. We need to talk, he told father. Of course, anything you need. Privately, Lian Yu added, glancing meaningfully at me. Every instinct screamed at me to stay, but father waved me inside. Through the thin walls, I could hear the murmur of voices, but not the words. When father finally came in an hour later, his face was gray as winter ash. What did he say? Mother demanded. Father slumped into his chair. The new debt, combined with what we already owe, it's impossible. Even if we sold everything, worked for years. There must be another way, I said desperately. Father looked at me with eyes full of pain and something else, something that looked almost like guilt. He offered a solution, father said quietly. What solution? He's willing to forgive all the debts. Everything. We'd be free and clear. In exchange for what? I asked, though my heart was already sinking. Father couldn't meet my eyes. He wants to marry you. What? He says he's been in love with you since the festival. The debt assistance was his way of proving his devotion to our family. And if I refuse? Father's hands shook as he spoke. The law is clear about unpaid debts of this magnitude. Since I have no assets left to seize, the creditor has the right to take family members as collateral. Not just you, but your younger sisters as well. And even then, the debt wouldn't be fully paid. The room spun around me. You mean he would own you all? Father whispered. But if you marry him willingly, your sisters remain free, and our family honor remains intact. Mother was weeping again, but whether from relief or despair, I couldn't tell. I need time to think, I said numbly. He wants an answer tomorrow, Father whispered. That night, I sat by my window staring at the stars and trying to understand how my life had become a chess game where I was the piece everyone else was moving. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear music from the village festival grounds where I'd once danced with such hope. That girl felt like a stranger now, someone naive enough to believe that talent and virtue could overcome circumstances. Tomorrow, I would have to choose between my family's survival and my own freedom.
I didn't sleep. As dawn light crept through my window, I sat up and made the decision that would define the rest of my life. When I entered our main room, I found my parents already awake, sitting in heavy silence over cold tea. They looked up as I approached, hope and dread warring in their expressions. I'll marry him, I said simply. Mother burst into fresh tears. Whether of relief or sorrow, I couldn't tell. Father's shoulders sagged as if a great weight had settled on them. Daughter, he began, his voice thick with guilt. Don't, I interrupted. This is my choice. It wasn't true, of course, but saying it aloud made it easier to bear. Lian Yu arrived before noon, dressed in his finest robes and carrying an ornate marriage contract. His smile was triumphant, though he tried to make it appear gentle. "You've made me the happiest man in the kingdom," he told me as I signed my name with a hand that barely trembled. "Have I?" I met his eyes directly. "Because this feels more like a business transaction." His smile faltered slightly. "Love often begins with practical considerations. Ours will grow into something beautiful, I'm certain." "And if it doesn't?" "It will," he said firmly. "I'll make sure of it." The wedding preparations began immediately. Lian Yu insisted on the finest of everything: silk for my robes, flowers from the capital, musicians from the most renowned families. The entire village buzzed with excitement over the extravagant celebration, but I felt like a ghost, drifting through someone else's life. 3 days before the ceremony, Zhao Ming appeared at our door. I hadn't seen him since our conversation by the river, and the sight of him made my carefully constructed composure crumble. "Is it true?" he asked quietly. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Why didn't you come to me? I told you I wanted to help." "This was the only way. To marry a man you don't love?" The pain in his voice nearly broke me. "Some of us don't have the luxury of marrying for love. You're sacrificing yourself. I'm saving my family." Zhao Ming stepped closer, his eyes intense. "What if I spoke to my father? What if I could arrange alone?" "It's too late," I said firmly. "The contracts are signed." "Contracts can be broken. Not without destroying everyone I care about." I forced myself to look at him directly. "Zhao Ming, you have to let this go. Let me go." "I can't." The words were barely a whisper. "I love you." "Then you'll want me to be happy, and I'll be happiest knowing my family is safe." It was a lie, and we both knew it, but some lies are kinder than the truth. The night before my wedding, Mother helped me prepare the red silk robes that would mark me as a bride. Her hands shook as she arranged my hair with the elaborate ornaments Lian Yu had provided. "I'm so sorry. This isn't what I wanted for you." "I know, Mother. Do you hate us?" I considered the question seriously. "I hate the circumstances. I hate that we had no other choice. But I could never hate you. He might be a good husband. He's shown devotion to our family." "Yes," I agreed. "He's been very devoted." But devotion and manipulation often wore similar faces, and I was beginning to understand the difference. The wedding day dawned clear and bright, as if the heavens were mocking my situation. The ceremony passed in a blur of ritual and pageantry. I bowed to heaven and earth, to Lian Yu's parents, and finally to my new husband. When we drank from the shared cup, his eyes never left my face. "You're mine now," he murmured as the guests celebrated around us. "I'm your wife," I corrected. "There's a difference." His smile was sharp as a blade. "We'll see." That night, in the elaborate chamber he'd prepared for us, Lian Yu finally dropped all pretense of gentle courtship. "Did you really think you had a choice in this?" he asked as I sat stiffly on the edge of the bed. "What do you mean?" "Your father's gambling, the debts, that convenient gambling house near the docks?" He smiled at my shocked expression. "I own that establishment, Yue-chan." The truth hit me like cold water. "You orchestrated everything." "I prefer to think of it as creating opportunities. Your father was already gambling.
I simply provided better venues for him to lose money. Why? My voice was barely a whisper. Because I wanted you. From the moment I saw you dance, I knew you had to be mine. But you kept refusing my gifts, dismissing my advances. You preferred my noble friend with his pretty words and empty promises. Jianming would have married me. Lian Yu laughed coldly. Would he? Have you met his family, Yue-chan? Do you know what they think of commoners who reach above their station? His words found their mark, but I refused to let him see it. Even if that's true, I said steadily, it doesn't justify what you've done. Justify? He moved closer, his eyes glittering. I don't need to justify anything. I saw what I wanted, and I took it. That's how the world really works. Through lies and manipulation? Through understanding leverage. Your family needed money. I had money. You needed a husband who could provide security. I could provide that. Everyone gets what they need. What about what I wanted? You'll learn to want what you have, he said confidently. I can be very persuasive. As he reached for me, I realized that my new husband wasn't just arrogant and manipulative, he was dangerous. And I had just bound my life to his through sacred vows that couldn't be undone. The girl who had danced so hopefully at the festival was truly gone. In her place sat a woman who would have to learn quickly how to survive in a cage built from debt and desire. But even as despair threatened to overwhelm me, a spark of something else flickered to life in my chest. Anger. Determination. Lian Yu had won this battle through cunning and ruthlessness, but the war between us was far from over.
And this is where we'll pause the story for now, but this story isn't over. I will be uploading the next part, which is the final part, soon. If you'd like to see it, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss it. See you in the next part.